All right, joining me on the program right now is Representative Randy Webster. How you doing, sir? Weber, excuse me.
No, I'm fine, Andrew. I've been called worse.
All right. For the life of me, if I didn't know the history of the Iraq War, I would still think this is thin. But the very same people who are now saying this is concrete, it's rock solid, were the very same people saying after the fact they felt the intelligence in Iraq was thin.
Okay. So here's my take, Andrew. As an elected representative for District 14 in Texas, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, where is our national interest? Let's just assume, let's take all the argument away about is the intelligence good. Let's get to the meat of the discussion. Let's say it is that this guy has gassed his own people like Saddam Hussein did the Kurds, like the Iran used against Iraq, was used in that Iran-Iraqi war. Hitler used gas. Let's say this guy used gas on those people. All right, we know that for a fact. Does that mean that to protect the president's credibility, because that's what I believe this is about, he's drawn the red line. Now he wants to say it's Congress's red line or the world's red line. You're seeing him backpedal. Does that mean that we have to send American men and women over there to spill American blood, American resources, American money, and possibly American lives to protect his credibility? And I say no. We do not have a compelling national interest. Travesty, he's attacked his people. Children have died. Hundreds of thousands of people, Andrew, die around the world every year. We don't go try to right every wrong.
Well, let me read you a headline from former Representative Jane Harman, who was on the Intelligence Committee. The Daily Beast, Why Syria is Good for American Democracy. This debate is what America needs after the anguish and hard lessons of Iraq, but in the end, we will do the right thing on Syria, says former Congresswoman Jane Harman, and then it goes on for her piece. First of all, democracy is the process by which we choose our leaders. How on earth is Bashar al-Assad a threat to how we choose our leaders? He isn't. But she writes, while in Congress, I carefully reviewed the intel on Iraq and voted yes. When it turned out to be wrong, I said it was wrong and I was wrong. This time around, it's only right and proper that we have a different process and different approach to the problem. Well, the president is acting like getting congressional authorization is some mere formality. How is the process changed for the better?
Well, I don't believe that it has, and it doesn't. Again, I go back to putting American lives on the line. They say no boots on the ground. I don't know if you saw my exchange with John Kerry, with Chuck Hagel, with General Dempsey at a Foreign Affairs hearing last Wednesday. But I said, look, you cannot guarantee me that after hundreds and hundreds of millions and billions of dollars outlay that we don't have, and possibly American lives at stake, and American resources for sure, that we have a stable Syria, that we have a stable region, or that when on the other side of this conflict, whoever comes out, emerges as the government of Syria, is going to be our friends. They're not going to be. Why do we need to get involved and spend our money and our blood and our manpower? We're going to wind up in a prolonged, an escalating war. Haven't we learned our lesson? And the answer, apparently, from Jane Harman's article, as well as others who have endorsed the...
Oh, I have Kerry's in front of me right here from the Huffington Post.
Oh, sure.
This is what I don't understand, Congressman. Representative Randy Weber is joining us from the 14th District of Texas. That Kerry, in particular, Vietnam vet, then became anti-war protester. So he was for the Vietnam War before he was against it. Then he was for the Iraq War before he was against it. When you hear this from Harman, from Biden, from Kerry, all these people who essentially voted for the Iraq War, then became against it, shouldn't you be noting the particular place on the timeline where they are between supporting it and being against it? What are they going to do if this turns sour? Are they going to be against it then too?
Well, probably, Andrew, but I hope with all good conscience that the United States Congress will stand up and be counted and say no to John Kerry, no to Chuck Hagel, no to Biden, no to Obama, and say we've been fooled too many times. We backed Hitler. I'm sorry, we backed Fidel Castro. We backed Saddam Hussein. We backed Osama bin Laden. You can go right down the Shah of Iran. You can go right down through Egypt. Have we not learned our lesson? I hope Congress stands up and says, I don't care if you guys think you're right or wrong. We represent the American people. We have a moral obligation. We have a $16, $17 trillion debt. We can't afford this. We have an obligation to take care of our suffering over here before we worry about suffering over there.
Yeah, and the last Middle Eastern country that the Obama administration sought to destabilize brought in the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah, don't we have a good track record? Have we not learned anything? That lasted, a year? And then the Egypt military threw him out. And listen, quite frankly, Andrew, the Obama administration can't even decide if that was a coup.
What the definition of is. As somebody who started my talk radio career full time in 2003. So, as a host, I was on the front line of debate, clearly not front line of war. But the progressives always would say, well, the UN resolution, got to have the UN resolution, got to have a coalition of the willing. And then our coalition of the willing became, as John Kerry said, the coalition of the bribed and the coerced. Here, we don't have congressional authorization. We don't have a UN resolution. We don't have the Security Council or the UN report even completed. And our supposed ally, the UK, they had an open revolt in their parliament. Canada's not joining us in this. We don't have it. And then we get this, well, the Saudis are on board. Well, are the Saudis deploying troops? Well, the Australians have given support. Well, are they deploying troops? Getting a letter from the Kazakhs is not good enough. Unless somebody says we're going to put boots on the ground alongside you, they're not really allies in this.
Well, I don't even care what they say, Andrew. Kerry said that in the Foreign Affairs Committee hearing on Wednesday of last week. We've got probably 20 or 30 countries behind us. And of course, we only had 5 minutes to interview them, so I didn't have a lot of time. They couldn't guarantee me that we'd have, like I said, stable Syria, stable region, or a good government, American-friendly government on the backside. But what I really wanted to say, too, was there was some 182 or 3 countries signed on with the peace accord. No chemical weapons could be used. Well, where are those 183 countries? I'm like you say, Andrew. You know what? How about this? One of y'all take the lead. You step up with the manpower, the money, the resources, and then maybe we'll chip in a little bit. Why is it everybody's saying, United States, we're behind you. We're behind you.
What about NATO? I thought the whole concept of NATO was if one of us goes, we all go.
Absolutely. What about NATO? And the United Nations is a joke. I just soon get the United Nations out of the U.S. and the U.S. out of the United Nations.
Here's another one. If this is the world's red line, not Obama's, the world's red line, then the world should be doing something collectively.
Absolutely. The United States can no longer be the policeman of the world. Everybody standing on the sidelines and clapping and cheering while we spend all of our money, our assets, and spill our American blood and our American men and women's lives. Let NATO, let the UN, let that coalition of 183 or however many signatories to the peace accord it was, step up to the plate. It's high time, long since past, overdue, that we quit trying to be the world's policeman.
Let me throw one more thing here. Representative Randy Weber is joining us, 14th District, Texas. My favorite thing now is that, you got a lot of these progressive pundits and members of the House. Well, Republicans were for war under Bush. I'm sorry. With this thin evidence of these anecdotal videos, I'm not going to advocate for a war just to make the scorecard even. Like if you're accusing me of hypocrisy, whoop-de-doo. War's a lot worse than hypocrisy. You want to call me a hypocrite? Call me a hypocrite. Now you've got some progressive voices like Ed Schultz over at MSNBC saying that, the Republicans are rejecting this war because of the president's race. They hate him that much. Okay, so my choices here are war with Syria or be a racist. Well, the chants from the last war were racist, unjust, illegal war. You guys were saying racist. War is racist. I'm sorry, these sort of scorecard evening, tools they're trying to employ, I would rather be called a hypocrite. I don't want to be called a racist, but I'll take the flack from my political opposition than just start a war to go, I'm not a racist, I'll show you.
Well, look, I'm not standing up for Ed Schultz's criticism to say, I need to bend so that he doesn't call me a racist.
Right.
I'm standing up for American soldiers, American men and women, the American public who understand we have a $17 trillion debt. We have out-of-control deficit. We have our own problems over here. We ought to be focused on jobs. We have suffering, human misery and suffering right over here. And as I said earlier, our first obligation is to this country first. And we ought to take that. And Ed Schultz can call Randy Weber whatever he wants to. He can try to label me. If he can't show me a compelling national interest, get out of my face.
Well, that, and I mean, I think there's got to be a lot of Democrats and Democrat pundits who know that for 8 years they were on one side of this equation. Now and what's even more bizarre is this president won a Nobel Peace Prize for getting elected.
Well, yeah, we've talked about that the other day, Andrew. You know that McDonald's now offers a free Nobel Peace Prize with a Happy Meal.
I gotta go get one. If if the fast food workers here in New York City aren't striking. But instead of putting this on the category, look, you Republicans are hypocrites for not opposing the war. Isn't it worse that you Democrats are hypocrites for actually calling for war?
Well, and not only this, but look, it's time that Republicans and Democrats come together and do the best for the American public. And in this particular instance, the best thing that we can do for the American public, and it doesn't matter whether they're Democrats, Republicans, independents, conservatives, liberals, it matters, libertarians, it matters not. The best thing we can do is say we've learned our lesson, stay out of the fight in Syria.
All right, I'm going to leave it there because I got to end the show because Sean Hannity's coming up. But Representative Randy Weber, thanks for giving us your time today.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right.
Good day.
Now, here's the thing. All this is going to do is make people more libertarian. This is going to make people more libertarian. This is the Rand Paul faction. Here's another lesson you're going to learn. If you voted in 2004 for John Kerry, you still would have gotten war. If you voted for John McCain in 2008, you still would have gotten war. You voted for Barack Obama in 2008, you still got war. If you vote for Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, who are beating the war drum, you'll still get war. The only way for you to not get war is to vote for someone like Rand Paul. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do when the primaries roll around or when the general election rolls around. Andrew, you voted for John McCain. You're right. It was admittedly the lesser of two evils. On the war front, would have been the same. Got to be honest, don't know what Romney would have done. Romney might have said, look, we got an economy to fix. I don't have time for a war in Syria. Maybe Romney being a Mormon would have been anti-war. Don't know. We're right, they're wrong. That's the end of the story. The arguments on this radio program cannot be broken. SiriusXM Patriot.